So good afternoon, everyone. So this Saturday afternoon. So I am Dr. Harish Gupta. I am head of the medical department, Cankit Scan. So a warm welcome to everyone for this webinar and 9th stakeholder retinoblastoma meeting. And I would like to call upon Poonam Madam and Dr. Santosh Rawat to take the proceedings further. Poonam Madam.
Yes, thank you, and very warm welcome to everybody. And thank you so much for joining the 9th Fight RB India stakeholders meeting today. This is actually something that we had hoped to do in the month of May, which is RB Awareness Week. And for many of you who have been part of this initiative almost from the beginning, we cannot thank you enough for all that you have done, and where we are today is exciting. It is something that we feel we have grown together, we have worked together, we have tried to learn. We as an NGO have tried to learn from you, and perhaps many of you as doctors have learned not only to work with a support group and an NGO, but also to understand how vitally important it is to actually work together as stakeholders, right? So without further ado, I would like to start with an update. I'm trying to understand what has happened. Yes. So Dr. Honavar and I will, oh, you have muted me. Yeah. Dr. Honavar and I will try to be brief. Dr. Honavar tends to be more brief than me, so please forgive me if I overstretch a little bit.
You can take all of 15 minutes, Poonam.
No, not at all. So just to give you a little background for what the Fight RB India initiative is, a stakeholder initiative that belongs to each and every one of us who's here today, and many more people as well who are fighting retinoblastoma in India, working together. Therefore, no leaders. Each member has an equal participation and an equal voice, and together working to make a difference to childhood cancer, retinoblastoma in India, with the goal to save lives, to save vision, and to save eyes. So for those of you who've been there from the beginning, you'd recognize yourself in the photograph. This was the first meeting of the Fight RB National Interest Group, which was formed in August in 2014. And this was at the Kalavati Saran Children's Hospital several years ago. Again, as I said, the aim was to make an impact on retinoblastoma and to change the outcomes in India. The idea was to collaborate between individuals and institutions, RB centers, specialists in the field of pediatric oncology, pathology, radiology, RB survivors, RB parents, CAN kids, and other NGOs society. And for CAN kids, for those of you who don't know this, we work only in the field of childhood cancer, 0 to 19 years of age. This project was special because we started not just saying, let's provide services all over the country, but we said, okay, let's work together with all the stakeholders to improve outcomes as well. So we joined together, and over the years, we've had 8 meetings. I'm not walking through all these meetings, but simply to tell you that the initiative has grown. More and more centers have come together to work together in different ways to actually try to see what we can do to work together as a community, both on the ophthalmology side, the oncology side, to make that difference. And excitingly, in 2020, we rolled out the INPOG retinoblastoma study, and that takes us, I think, a significant step forward in terms of what we want to achieve. So Dr. Honavar, thank you so much for helping us with this. We had come to you saying we want to do something to work with the medical fraternity so that we can actually look at outcomes. Our work typically as an NGO is to improve access to care, to provide supportive care. But what can we do together as stakeholders so that we can actually talk about, did survival improve or not? Did we save more children? Did we save more eyes? Did we save vision? And that cannot happen unless we look at research, we look at new forms and sophisticated forms of treatment. We look at what's the best in the world and try to adapt it here too. And often that becomes only when we can have funds. And so if we come together and we have funds, we have support groups, we have medical, we have research, then that is when we would make that difference. So I remember back then asking you, will you give us a document, like a roadmap? And you did. You gave us some monograph and you gave us timelines. And I have to say, we're quite behind on some of those timelines, but we have made steady progress as a group of stakeholders. And I'm just proud to say that when it comes to retinoblastoma, the community has truly come together to work together to be able to show and to demonstrate in the coming years that we've made that difference in our country. So CanKids took on the role of the facilitator, also the role of helping to fund the initiatives. And today I'm delighted to have one of our donors with us, one of our new donors to the project, and I will introduce him to you in a bit. But that actually allows us to do more and more interventions and to move forward. So I'm going to, at this juncture, simply put up the goals and objectives of this Fight RB India. And these are out of Dr. Honavar's monograph, and to hand over to him so he can tell us where we are with this, what have we achieved, what have we not done well perhaps, or what we've done well, and what is the future looking like? Dr. Honavar.
Thank you, Poonam. I think you have said it all. I welcome all the stakeholders for this meeting. It's a very nice initiative, wonderful initiative on part of CanKids to have kind of thought about it. First of all, as clinicians, we always work in silos and we don't get organized as quickly as an NGO can do. I think they're the lubricants in the whole process. So that's great. What we have done is we have established the protocol already. That's goal A is achieved. We have identified the centers, and hub and spoke model is somewhat in place. We know which are the centers which have all the facilities in a particular region, and which are the centers which have some facilities, can diagnose and manage retinoblastoma, but not to the fullest extent, such as patients who need intraarterial chemotherapy or plaque brachytherapy can go to the hub, whereas a spoke can do almost everything else. That is already in place, but we haven't formalized anything because over a period of time, spokes are getting upgraded as hubs, and that is the natural evolution. So obviously let that happen, and then we'll look at it again. So we don't want to designate anybody as a spoke or a hub. It's just a natural process. And if somebody wants a particular form of treatment which is not available, it can be sought anywhere in the region or in the country. And CanKids obviously facilitate. If somebody needs a plaque brachytherapy, they bring the patient over to the center where there is plaque brachytherapy, get that done, and the patient goes back for follow-up to the center where the patient was primarily managed. Well, goal D, consolidate the facilities for clinical care and augment medical and paramedical human resources. This is somewhat done, but we are only till now concentrated on medical resources, but not paramedical human resources, such as a pathology technician or an ocularist, etc. That is something possibly, or a nurse, oncology nurse, or a chemotherapy nurse. How do they need to get trained? Social workers, what kind of special training do they need to handle kids and retinoblastoma? These are some of the elements that can be put together. Demographic and clinical data and evaluate outcomes is part of the study anyway, that is happening. Logistic support, obviously, that is one major part of CanKids. They do it anyways. Part of the study, not part of the study. Even if your institute or a center is not part of the study, if a child needs support, they are there. So I think that's creditable. Next is to train the entire spectrum of professionals, one component of which we are taking up today. In fact, Poonam last week proposed that if there is an ophthalmologist who may be a retina specialist or an oculoplasty specialist, but not exposed to retinoblastoma as much, to be able to independently diagnose and manage retinoblastoma, they are going to offer training facilities. In fact, they have written to all the centers to seek volunteers, trainers, And the trainees, of course, will self-identify and apply, and they can be selected based on their aptitude and also their readiness to devote time and some portion of their time for retinoblastoma management dedication, basically. And their institute sponsor has to promise them facilities when they finish the training. So these training can be short-term, little longer time, depending on the need that can be matched. Next would be the other bits, such as very important bits, genetics and pathology. Genetics, of course, we have a session today where we are going to discuss how we can bring in genetics with full force into the management of retinoblastoma. We know it is very important. That is something that is not currently done routinely in India, mainly because of cost barriers. And also we don't have a particular center which can do it for us and also take care of the entire spectrum. As clinicians, we lack kind of aptitude in counseling, genetic counseling, and each center cannot have its own genetic counselor. These kids need, their families need pre and post test counseling and handholding. All that has to be done by a particular group of professionals. Oncopathology, of course, we will take it up once we assess the need. If somebody needs, one of the centers need a centralized reading lab to assess risk factors, etc. That, of course, we can readily do because we have that facility. Same with ocular history. If any of the centers need ocular history training, we can readily offer that too. That's about it, Poonam. I hand it back to you.
Yeah, Dr. Honavar, if you'd like to look at the objectives on the right side and tell us, where do you think we are today?
Standardized management is, it's there. It's nothing that we don't have. It's to be kind of homogenized. It's there already. Pan-India coverage of retinoblastoma treatment centers and standard facilities, of course, that's there. Hub and spoke, I already talked about national retinoblastoma database we are acquiring. Treatment abandonment, less than 95%, that data will come, at least in the centers that you're supporting. I acknowledge your support really deeply. You have been supporting us for several years now. I've been working with you for more than 15, 16 years now, earlier at LVPI and now at Center for Sight. And the way you kind of handle these kids and bring them back, and then support them for travel, etc., is great. And we have treatment abandonment, which is less than 5%. Even during COVID, we chased them and got them back with all sorts of, support. Eye salvage of more than 75%. I think most of the centers which are participating have that already. Prosthesis coverage, I don't have data, but of course, that is assumed, but whether they're giving custom ocular prosthesis or if it's a ready-made prosthesis, that is something the centers can tell us. Retinoblastoma training centers is on the today's agenda. Shared care facilities for ophthalmic oncopathology is there, but if there is need, we can provide it like from tomorrow. It's not that something that we need to establish. Clinical genetics and molecular diagnostics need some work. That's why we have a meeting today. And goal-oriented translational research is something that we can look at. We haven't done that. And K&L, of course, are still slightly hazy.
So thank you. Yes, I think we have made progress over the years as a group. And I think we are, as of last year, definitely there was a period of time when I felt we were in a bit of a lull maybe. But over the years, centers have started doing intra-arterial chemotherapies. They've started doing more and more what we like to call sophisticated interventions that we're able to fund and support. For us, the excitement also came from the fact that we got one big additional donor, and that makes funding much more important and much more able to then start to provide services, etc. So there's a lot of excitement within CanKids, and I think among the stakeholders now than perhaps not so much in 17, 18, 19, but 19, 20, it's picked up, and I think we're looking at very, very good place. So just a quick little overview. We have 59 centers, and that's the network of centers across the country that are offering RB services. And that's a little bit of, north, south, east, west. Who are the hospitals that are engaged? I will share the presentation post the session, so you can all have a look at it too. And you would see that actually almost all these centers are now engaged within this. And though you may not call it a formal network, but Fight RB India allows us to actually work with everybody, and everybody is able to contribute in some way to take this forward. We did a little bit of an analysis based on the support that we have given over the years. And this analysis we did in last year in 2020. And actually, it was interesting to us that we are now at about, let's say, 700 children that we support out of potentially the 1,500 to 2,000 children that we think have retinoblastoma each year in the country. And I just wanted to share this with you. We are working on looking at updating this information in terms of, as you can see, we have almost 37% children we were not able to contact because the data is over the years. But more and more, the services that we are offering, the work that we are all doing together will allow us to monitor. And that study is exciting because it will allow us to put out much, much better, more robust information in terms of are we making a difference. So for me, from my perspective, we're making a difference if children survive. We're making a difference if they get the services they need, they get the quality of care that they need. So this is just to give you a very, very simple snapshot out of our own virtual cancer assistance network, which shows the children that we in CanKids have supported over the years and how we are trying to refine this to be able to improve our services. We call all of these impact assessment studies that we do, management impact assessment studies for where are our children, to actually say, are we making the difference? So if you see this, this tells you that we do dedicated retinoblastoma centers. We are supporting 8 of them, and we're giving patient support in 18 centers. If you see this, it would tell you that over the last 8 years, CanKids has spent 4.6 crores on this project. We've raised 4.6 crores and we've spent 4.57 crores. And as you can see, till last year, our singular biggest support was from the Sajeev CanKids Retinoblastoma Fund, supported by Kanika Sarpal from Singapore. And then last year, Market India came in, has started supporting us with corporate social responsibility. And that suddenly now means for us that we will be able to provide more funding support. And today we have a slew of things that we are offering so that we can take things forward and people can feel more supported to do more and more with retinoblastoma. So as many of you know, with the INPOG study, we have been providing diagnostics and treatment. We provide holistic care for the non-affording patients. We actually support the whole treating center with manpower, patient support, awareness, advocacy, counseling, all the services. We provide project coordinators and data managers. We provide other manpower for the holistic care of patients, from social workers, data managers, teachers, counselors, psychologists, patient navigators. And we're committed to capacity building and training sessions, as well as study expenses for the study itself. And out of the 17 participating centers in INPOG so far, there are 10 that we have provided manpower to as well. Another little initiative that I want to share with you is from our survivor group. And they actually did a forum during COVID this year, and this last year actually, 2020. And they went back to look at all the survivors 5 years plus within our database. And they set up this project called Jyotirgamaya, Lead into Light. And this year they are taking the project forward as a survivor-led initiative, which we would like to partner with all the centers who would like to take this forward, so that we can work with our survivors as well as with the patients, to work on RB education, to look at prosthesis issues, psychosocial support, run survivor clinics for RB, provide disability certification. Our survivor group will help to do this, and actually put up documents on benefits for persons with disability, work with blind schools for kids to be admitted there, and work on prosthesis. So that's our Jyotirgamaya project. So
and time is over, ma'am.
Yes,
please, time is over, ma'am. Please.
Yes, 2 more minutes, Harish.
Okay, ma'am.
So finally, just to tell you that Dr. Honavar spoke about training, and yes, we would like to offer funding support for travel and stay for people who would like to take up training. We have asked all the centers if they would like to be a training center. And if so, what would be the terms and conditions and what is the training they can offer? You can see on the screen that there are just a few of the centers who have responded so far. We will keep this open for another couple of weeks to see if more centers would like to offer training, and then we would be happy to facilitate in this way. The second one is on equipment, and I have to say that this RetCam keeps getting more and more expensive and more difficult for us to fund. But this year we've started looking at least at funding TTs. We will come to genetics during the genetics session. So finally, I'm proud to share with you our donors for the project and to specially introduce to you IHS Market and to introduce to you Naveen Jhanji. He's with us today. He's an Executive Director, Engineering and Product Design at IHS Market. He's a techno management professional with 25 years plus achievement in running captive centers to drive performance, profit, and increase value, with a lot of experience in general management, change management, conflict resolution, content creation, compliance, and risk management. So IHS Market has actually worked with CanKids for the last 10 years, supported us for a lot of our smaller research projects. But this year, they've come on board as a CSR partner. And it is my privilege to introduce to you Naveen Jhanji and to invite him to say a few words. Thank you. Naveen?
Thank you, Poonamji. And it's my pleasure as part of my corporate to participate in this event as well as join hands with CanKids for their project on Retinoblastoma for this year and maybe many more years going forward. So we are very happy to participate with yourself and your organization. And I think together we can do a better job than what we are doing right now. Now, as a culture, this corporate is always engaged into various activities that help the societies. And many times we go beyond our recommended and mandatory CSR spend, and we go beyond that most of the times. And we would really like to support this project on a long-term basis. So thank you very much for inviting me, and we are very happy to participate in this event as well as in your effort for the betterment of the society.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dr. Harish, and thank you, Naveen.
Thank you, Poonam ma'am. Thank you, Honavar sir, and thank you, Mr. Naveen, for being here. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Amita Mahajan and Dr. Seema Das to please give us an update on the INPOC-RB study.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Seema, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure, Dr. Amita.
Hello. Yeah.
Am I audible, Dr. Amita?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible, ma'am.
Yeah. So we can start with the PPT maybe, just on the update of where we are right now. Just let me share the screen. Is this visible?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for taking out time for joining for this update meet. And so this is just a very brief update on where we are right now in the INPOC-RB study. So many of these data which are there in this PPT are just the initial data on the numbers which you are able to capture. And of course, the follow-up and the outcome data are something which is going to come over the period of time. So after the study was rolled out, the ethical approval from the various centers started coming over from August 2020 last year. And subsequently, many more centers have joined in, many are in the pipeline and are in the process of getting their ethical approvals. And this is what is the current status in terms of the number of centers who have participated. Ethical approval has been taken by 17 centers, and 12 centers are already enrolling patients for the study. So initially there were some kind of issues with some queries from the ethics committee with the MOUs and other things. And slowly those things were sorted out. And now the process is much more smoother. And right now there are 7 more centers who are in the process of getting the approvals. So in terms of number, the target for this study for 3 years is 630. And right now, till last month, the enrollment has been done for 125 patients from the 12 centers who are already enrolling. And this is a very brief sort of breakup of the demographic, which is kind of what we already know about retinoblastoma. This is a month-wise enrollment. Initial couple of months has been slightly slow, and with COVID, it started picking up from this year onwards. But in April there was a little dip because of the lockdown and the other things, and but slowly picked up again in May. So we expect as the centers starts getting number of centers starts getting enrolled and more centers starts getting their ethical approval, this number will subsequently move up. And these are again very preliminary data on the little bit of clinical presentation of the patients who have been captured till now. And almost half of them are still intraocular diseases, which seems to be a good number, but we are yet to see the outcome and the follow-up of this cohort of patients. So this is very briefly on where we are in terms of numbers. And we look forward to many more centers to be on board and start sort of enrolling. Dr. Amita?
Yeah, thank you, Seema. So once again, I'd like to reiterate, our gratitude to all the centers, big and small, who've gone through the process of getting ethical committee permission. And, despite the COVID year and a reduced numbers of registrations at, across the board, I think we are on to a very solid start. And I think that just reflects the commitment and, of participation from all our partnering centers, that we are ready for some, a collaborative work such as this. As most of you would know, that the study aims and objectives are very simple, because I think, apart from getting epidemiological and data on outcomes, it was really our first tentative effort to set up a platform for collaborative work. And if we all think back at the objectives and goals that Poonam and Dr. Honavar have listed, just getting onto a study actually helps us achieve a fair proportion of them in terms of offering standard management to patient, abandonment reduction. And this has been the global experience, that as soon as patients get onto studies, it's not the study, but just the whole process, the strictness with the follow-up, it reduces abandonment, and it improves outcomes overall. So I think behind the other aims and objectives scientifically that have been listed, it's been our desire to use this as a platform to push the care for children with RB in India. And really, we are overwhelmed with the positive response that we've had from the centers. I'd still would like to encourage, as you can see, it was our planned target to recruit our desired number within 3 years, and we will hopefully achieve that. But I think I'd still like to invite those centers who are not yet partnering or participating to consider participation. We thought we'd wait for another 3 months before, closing, taking new centers. And, so I would like, if there are people today who are in this meeting and are not yet part of this study, big numbers or small, I think it's coming together. That is the most important. And I'd really like to request you to come on board. Also, we will share, regular quarterly newsletters, and, through this stakeholder platform, we'd like to share whatever data we are getting, and then hopefully, put together some publications and information out there, from this collaborative work. So that's all about the study. I think if there are any, I think some centers are going to present their experience of how it's been gone on. And I'd just like to say on behalf of the entire core team that if there are any challenges, any struggles, we'll go, the distance with you. You take them on one by one, sort them out, and see how best we can, make it easier for centers to enroll and participate, and be as less intrusive and, disruptive into your other clinical activities. But we'd really like more and more of you to come on board. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dr. Amita, thank you, Dr. Seema. There are three presentations that you people have got. I would like to request Dr. Divyansh Mishra from Shankara Eye Hospital, Bangalore, to please put up his presentation. These are some learnings that and the challenges that he has faced during the course of this RB study.
Thank you again for making us a part of INPOG study group. I would start sharing my screen.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. So hopefully my screen is visible and I'm audible. So again,
screen is visible, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Please.
Yeah, sure. And thanks again for making us part of this CanKids and INPOG study group. Warm regards from Shankara Hospital, Bangalore, Dr. Mahesh, myself, and my colleague, Dr. Rajesh. So these are the important findings which I wanted to present, that we had around 37 children who presented from June, because we were the first centers to get the ethics committee clearance somewhere in around June, first or second week, till this point, or May 2021. So the number of children which we have included in the study, as we can see, is 10. So I had certain other children which could not be included. So this is the number for that. The cases which were transferred from other centers, because one of our center, Dr. Mahesh, handles cases which require surgeries, intraretinal surgeries for retinoblastoma. So considering, because that was not a part, so that's why those 3 cases were not included. And 4 cases, one of follow-up, which were treated outside long time back. Of that, 1 case had a CML also right now. He's 12 years old. 1 case which we had seen over here in our center, and because we have other centers also in Shankara, but it was treated at other Shankara eye centers, that's why that was not included. There were 13 cases which were lost to follow-up. Of that, at first visit, means when the first patient presents, at that point we do a scans and then explain the parent that, okay, there is some kind of a problem, we need to get some investigations done. So 4 children dropped out at the first instance itself, and 9 children dropped out after the second. Second means when they are here at the time when the diagnosis is confirmed with an MRI, either unilateral, bilateral, or trilateral. But of that, as we can see, 35% is a drop-off rate. We have studied this in past also. It ranges somewhere in 33, 35. We want help for this. And yes, these were the important 3 cases where, like, these cases were where a neoadjuvant chemo was started. Like, there was an MRI confirmation of retinoblastoma with a yellow reflex of the eye. But considering that the parents wanted to salvage, that's why the chemotherapy was given 2 cycles and then considered enucleation. But yes, after enucleation, it was confirmed that it was retinoblastoma. But because our study doesn't state that it has to be confirmed beforehand, then only the chemotherapy should be started, and then the confirmation should be given to be included into the study. And this was the last 3 cases which presented to us with, because we also screen ROP. So in certain children which we saw very early, clinically group A, which yes is also reported as retinoblastomas, but because our diagnostic criteria are clinical and radiological, so that's why again these 3 cases were not included. So these were our findings, that what to do for such cases, whether to include. Yes, we would be very happy if it's a suspected case which can be included. In COVID times, because we tried to avoid an extra EUA if it's a bilateral retinoblastoma, which is very confirmatory even on MRI. So then we have advised neoadjuvant chemo and then did the EUA. But because our the first primary chart requires an EUA to be filled into the data sheet, because such patients would not be included. Suspected cases of group A where only clinical diagnosis can help, and poor compliance, if CanKids then help us to have some counselors to help them. And yes, if cases are managed in other center, whether this is an overlap or to avoid any duplication, is there a common number provided to such patients so that can be tracked uniformly? That would be our discussion which we wanted to discuss. And this was one suggestion, just if it is possible, that the Excel sheet can be controlled, if that can give us only the restricted amount of entry which can be put into it. Because right now, because there are certain entries which has to be done afterwards, like some corrections needs to be done. So in those, what is happening, either some new entries are done which are actually not the data point. So if the data point can be controlled in the Excel sheet, that was a suggestion. Thank you again.
Dr. Seema, shall I take the questions?
Yeah, Dr. Amita, I think these are very valid points. In fact, from the other sectors also, we have very similar kind of queries, what we have got.
So the first thing is that the inclusion frightens. That's why the emphasis on newly diagnosed. But it is, within 4 weeks of, diagnosis and starting treatment. So if the child has been diagnosed, but, did not take any treatment, comes back again or goes to another center, that child is still eligible for enrollment because that is the stage and, radiological clinical findings at presentation. So, and, if a patient has moved from one center to another, that's all right. I mean, like I said, we will create, there is a lot of information and we can, because we would be following every enrolled patient, we would know that if they have gone from your center, but if they are at another centers because we are regularly interacting with the social workers. So patients, relapsed patients, it will really dilute the data that we are trying to collect, and we can look at another study or maybe subsequently. But right now we just wanted to, but there is flexibility within 4 weeks, and if the patient has been diagnosed before 4 weeks but not started treatment, you can take them at any point, but they would need to be reassessed if the interval has been more than 4 weeks. So I think that there is no confusion about that. And centers, we can track that because there is a lot of other information. The centers have UHIDs. The suggestion about controlling the data point, that is well.
Ma'am, I think there is some network
I
problem.
think that should be feasible. Dr. Arvind is handling that part. He's part of this meeting. So I think Dr. Arvind, we should be able to do that. As long as we have a diagnosis of many centers have not been able, otherwise also there are, because their numbers are so much, and sometimes they have to start treatment without doing an EUA. All we've requested is that whenever the first EUA is done, ideally we would have it before any treatment is started. But if for some reason that has not been feasible, whenever the first EUA is done, we will document those findings, and if there has been radiological diagnosis, we will just take those findings. So they are not excluded from inclusion just because EUA has not been feasible for whatever reason prior to starting of treatment, because that would have led to delay in treatment. So there is no request to delay treatment, and you can definitely enroll such a patient. We just document because this is the study has to reflect the real life is in a country, and that is what happens. So if it solve these challenges in the time to come. In terms of support for limiting abandonment, if there is manpower requirement, we know there is data from India that retinoblastoma is the condition for which the abandonment rates are highest in the country. And that may be partly to do with our plan for renew. We don't know. That is something that again we would like to understand, because one of the secondary objectives of this study is for abandonment. So that's why we would like to actually enroll patients as soon as they come to the center, because then hopefully we can work with the family and the center to limit abandonment. Otherwise, Dr. Seema,
yeah. So, just one more thing, Dr. Divyansh, thanks for bringing those points. Regarding the abandonment, this is actually considered as an event, since the idea of the study is also to kind of reduce the abandonment. So if at some point of time, if the patient is kind of abandoned treatment, that should be filled up as an event form. So all the centers has been given the forms other than the clinical data forms and the demographic data forms. There is something known as the event form also. So which has to be filled up by the social worker, which will mention the what is the event, which could be an abandonment, which could be death, or could be any other kind of side effect related to the treatment. The idea is that once that event form is filled up, the social worker or maybe the CANKIDS team can actually go back to the family and try to follow up with them and bring them back for the treatment.
Madam, just to make understand better, the event form only states that either it is relapse, died, abandonment, or either secondary malignancy. So we have suggested that patients have lost for follow-up. So
Abandonment.
whether
So abandonment is defined in the study as not turning up for treatment for 4 weeks from the scheduled date of treatment. Anything beyond that, we have labeled it as abandonment, because even if it is lost to, even if it is delayed, the definition of abandonment, and that is the whole point. That's why it doesn't matter. We don't need to. Because quite often in our study, when we enroll patients, we see, well, okay, if he comes back for next visit, I will enroll, because if we enroll, the moment he's enrolled, if there is abandonment, then we can, trigger the pathway for follow-up and things. But abandonment is an event, and loss to follow, for us, we find that as if a patient not turning up for beyond a week, 2 week delay, but beyond 4 weeks from their scheduled date of treatment.
Also, I think, Dr. Divyansh, your question on like the cases transferred from other centers, like in VR surgery, which are not part of this protocol per se, but that could be a treatment modality at times for a very selected group of RB patients, and which is an acceptable, accepted treatment modality for a very small group of patients. So I think we should include this patient, and in the treatment column, there is an option of other treatment which has been provided to the patient. So at least that data can be captured, what other additional treatment has been provided to the patient other than what is mentioned in the protocol. So Dr. Santosh, your view on this?
I agree, Seema, totally, because we should not lose on any patient. Even, radiological diagnosis is only for advanced cases. For group A, B, I don't think we should even do a scan unless it's really indicated because you want to rule out retinoblastoma, etc. Even up to C, you don't generally do a scan.
Yeah, so even a clinical diagnosis is good. In fact, in RB, it's a clinical diagnosis which is in fact much more reliable than any other modalities. And the other thing is about the new adjuvant chemotherapy, because now that because of the COVID situation and other thing, there is a possibility that the UA protocols might have to be tweaked at times. So if even on a clinical evaluation, we are getting enough information which we are getting from the UA, at least in terms of whether it's a ophthalmic eye or whether there are AC seeds or whether pressure is high, which is what we try to look for when we are doing the UA, other than the tumor morphology and other aspect. So even if that much information is there, I think we can include these patients and fill up whatever is available. Whatever is not available, that's okay.
Roman, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, is there any other question that you would like to ask or Dr. Divyansh?
Questions. I think Dr. Mahesh sir is also there if sir wants to comment or tell anything.
Dr. Mahesh sir, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. So I think Dr. Divyansh has put it across quite well. So the basic question was, sometimes we are able to diagnose without a GA examination. So is it okay, is what he wanted to ask. Because GA examination, we may not be able to do it within 4 weeks. That's basically the question he had, I guess.
We have received one more presentation from Dr. Priyanka Agrawal, Banaras Hindu University Department of Pediatrics. But we will take her presentation during our COVID session. Apart from that, is there any other center, those who would like to put up the learnings that they have done from this study? Any other center?
Challenges or problems they've faced or are facing, so that we can, because the point is that there are very similar challenges that most centers are facing. So I think sharing it on this platform actually helps all of us to, come to how best to resolve this.
Dr. Devjyoti from LBBI Bhubaneswar.
I'd also like to say on behalf of the study team that as new centers come on board, they may identify, certain things. This is all like a learning exercise for us. And what we want to do is work together on this So, some of the changes have come really from suggestions from partnering centers, and then the protocol has been amended. But as we go on, also if there are suggestions when we capture data and how to make it easier for the centers or what can be done better, we'd be very, very happy to have that feedback in protocol and take it forward from there. Thus, whatever suggestions you have or inputs you have, because we'd like at the end of this to come up with data that is meaningful, that reflects the realities, and hopefully can suggest some solutions as well, or give us at least a roadmap for finding solutions.
Ma'am, there is a question from Dr. Vibha Bafna ki the high dose chemo protocol does not mention the per meter square dose. Can we include that?
I think that you may have had the first version of the protocol, which missed it at, but subsequent versions have had it. We'll definitely send you the amended version with the per meter square dosing as well, because older than 3 years, we have recommended per meter dosing, but I think the very first version did miss that, so that will be sent to you.
Dr. Rachna Mil, would you like to say something? Would you like to share your experiences? Dr. Rachna. Dr. Rachna Mil from RP Center AIMS.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so I think we've started recruiting patients from our center, and some of the questions that were discussed just now, I also found them quite relevant in the sense that the submission of the data may be done in parts as a EUA may not be possible in the current scenario, which was a very valid discussion. And other than that, it is a tough time right now, like many of us spoke just now. EUAs are difficult at this time, and yes, at our center also at times we have to take decision on treatment before we go on with the EUA. In fact, many a times we are doing a clinical examination without anesthesia and making decisions on same. So I think there will be a little, we may not be following the same rules as in times when the COVID was not around, but the basic practices remain the same. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rachna. Ma'am, there is a question from Dr. Deepak Bansal. Though Dr. Deepak Bansal has just left, he just put up a message to me. He has written JOE is standard first line chemo. Indication and option of second line intravenous chemo are unclear, but occasionally used by some centers. Need guidelines on second line chemo. An expert group could be constituted. Dr. Hanawat, would you like to comment on that?
Well, I think Amita would be the best person.
Dr. Amita, please.
Dr. Deepak, thanks for bringing it up. I mean, as we are treating these children, and we do need to use salvage chemotherapy sometime, either for poor response or relapse settings, or for patients who, for whatever reason, are not able to tolerate our standard first-line chemotherapy. So it's a very good idea. We will definitely work on towards, and definitely we would like to working committee that looks at this. So definitely we'll look at that. It's a very good suggestion. It is a challenge because when we have to use, there is a little debate on what or quite often what happens is that centers continue to use the same chemotherapy which has either not been effective or even at relapse setting. So that is a very good suggestion and something that we will work towards.
Ma'am, there is a question again from Dr. Vibha. If patients require HT chemo followed by ABMT, where do we send and will they get financial support?
So Dr. Vibha,
Ma'am, there is a break in your voice. Ma'am,
proportion of patients will actually need the treatment pathway. You know, because wherever, you know, there are very few situations, you know, where it is, you know, where I am, the network is an issue. Maybe I'll communicate to Dr. Vibha.
Ma'am, I think we have lost your...
Dr. Harish?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a pool
Ma'am,
network. I'll respond to Dr. Vibha on the chat box. Please carry on.
Okay, ma'am. When there is Dr. Santosh, there is one question from Dr. Roshmi regarding loss to follow-up. Many of the patients, particularly in South India, go doctor surfing across centers. Can we think of assigning UIDs and follow up them across all centers, sir?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, if they are, you know, if they have shifted or moved from one center to another, we can continue with the data collection if they know who, if we know who they are. So possibly Aadhaar based or mobile number based UID would be a good idea.
Okay.
So Honavar, does that mean that as the children enroll into the study, a number is assigned to them and that number is made known to all the centers that are participating with perhaps just some basic information so that they know that?
Yeah, that is one. Second is that if a center, you know, kind of starts, and suppose I start entering data of a particular patient, there'll be two other identifiers such as maybe father's or mother's name or mobile number of parents or Aadhaar number of parents or the child. Then with that, we can track these patients back to the original point of entry.
Correct. So what would therefore be required is for the data project manager, in this case, Dr. Arvind, to perhaps send out a periodic report to all the participating centers to say, this child has moved from this center to this center, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Is
So
there
Dr.
any...
Arvind, can you please identify yourself for a minute and say something so everybody knows you?
Dr. Arvind sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm coordinating the data, and I will write my email ID in the chat box. And if any centers have any problems or in please communicate with me, and I will communicate back.
Okay.
So thank you,
Dr. Harish.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Harish, can you hear me? This is Devjyoti from Bhubaneswar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear you,
You
sir.
were asking for me. I had just I had to go to my OPD to just see a patient, so I was just taking a break from the meeting.
No, so I was asking you, would you like to share some of your learnings and experiences with this INPOC RV study, and what the challenges that you have faced during the course of this study?
So the main challenge that we have faced has to do with the logistics of the entry in the form. And when we started recruitment in November 2020, we have recruited a total of 11 patients till now. And when we started recruitment in November 2021, we had a lot of hassles with the form. And then we were told by the INPOC team that they are working on it. And then there were some revisions which were made, and we were mailed a link recently. And on the this meeting was initially scheduled for the 29th of May, if I remember correctly. So prior to that date, on the 25th of May, we sat down and we went through all of the other entries that we had already made. Some of them were incomplete. And this time we revised all of the 11 entries, and this time it has been reasonably smooth. So that has been our experience.
Okay, sir. So thank you so very much for your feedback. Now I would like to, now there is one question from Dr. Shoma De. She is saying that our center SGCCRI does not have an ophthalmologist. So we can get patients for chemotherapy seen by Dr. Anirban Das, Shushrut Eye Hospital, who performs EUA and surgery. Do both of us enters the patient? How do we manage to avoid duplicate entries?
The patient has to be entered only once, though Dr. Shoma may enter some data, while some data is though. So primarily, I think the data entry person is the social worker, and we will ensure personally, because if, like Dr. Hunawar already said, we don't have the names of the patient, but we have more than one ID identifiers, and they will have the ID numbers of their individual centers in the data sheet that is shared with us. So it is, I think, the social worker's responsibility, and we will continue to engage with her to make sure that there is no doubling of data. But the patient should be entered in the study only once, and different elements of the treatment may be, entered by the data manager or social worker in discussion with the two consultants. And it will be the story for many participating centers actually, because the chemotherapy may be happening in a cancer institute while the ocular oncology part is being handled at the eye hospital. So it's not a unique situation there. It is a challenge, but I think most centers have so far been able to manage this well. And primarily because most of the data actually has to come from the ocular oncology team, or most of the most important data. The chemotherapy component data is actually smaller in terms. We need to know which algorithm, which standard versus high dose, how many cycles. So that is the component. So, but we will ensure that there is no duplication because we can coordinate that with the data entry person.
Thank you, ma'am. There is a question from Dr. Subina Narang. She is ophthalmologist at GMCH Chandigarh. Can we include patients who had presented to us after our center filed for ethical clearance, as the process of ethical clearance took a long time?
So because it says within the who have been diagnosed or staged in the 4 weeks period preceding to entry. So if the patient they got the ethical approval, but the patient has been seen 2, 3, 4 weeks before, yes, that patient can be enrolled. But strictly complying with the ethical committee guidelines, we cannot enroll patients in retrospective fashion, because I think we will not be able to capture some of the data. So prospectively, and I think there is enough time. We will, we can extend the, schedule time for the study. We will be able to capture the numbers. So I think we should continue to comply with the spirit and ethos and what commitment we have to give to IAC. So technically, it is from the date of receiving ethical committee approval that we can enroll patients. But because the inclusion criteria is that they should have been staged in the past 4 weeks, so that part we can, those patients we can take.
Thank you, everyone. Now we are closing this session, and the next session is about genetics and counseling. Genetics is one of the important aspects that is now coming on, where we people have seen the mother is in the cases of retinoblastoma, the child is the case of retinoblastoma. So I would like to call upon, there are 3 panelists there is a panel discussion. 3 panelists are Dr. Usha Kim from Arvinda Eye Hospital. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Mahesh Shambhugam, he is from Shankara Eye Hospital, Bangalore. Sir, good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much. And Dr. Arka. Sir, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Good afternoon. Dr. Santosh is the moderator for this session. Sir, please take it forward, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Santosh.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Usha, Mahesh, and Arka for joining. So just want to take a quick poll of all the participants. How many of them are actually doing genetics in their own setup currently? How many would want to do it? You can come on the camera and just raise your hand so that we can just get an estimate. And how many would can kids to support it? We have 2 already. Usha and Subina, and Mahesh, I'm sure, is doing it. Not many, huh? So not many, obviously. So if that is the situation, how do you want to take it forward? Usha, can you tell us your experiences as to how you have started doing it, and what is your current uptake, and are you routinely doing it? I believe you have a short presentation.
I could present, but I'll just make it very brief. I can make it very verbal instead of. So what we do is every case that gets registered. So in all of Arvind put together, we get about 100 cases in a year. So all of these 100 cases get genetic testing done, and all of these would be just the proband and the siblings, parents, all of these would get tested. Now, this process was set up in our research foundation, and it didn't, it didn't take off in a few years. It was like in 2008, we got it, in the pipeline of in the to-do list. But then it was about 2013 when we had substantial data and was convinced that it has to be done, that we went ahead and started this setup in the research foundation. Now what we have done is we've kind of made it a mandatory process, and we've made it a part of the hospital. So we have a genetic testing center in the hospital. So every case that is registered as a case of retinoblastoma would have all of these done as part of the protocol. And what I'd like now extend is, certainly we'd like to do it for anybody who's sending specimens from across the country. And if there needs to be any subsidization, we'll also be happy to do it. So that much I can assure you.
So how has it helped your patients?
Yeah, so now the thing is, in our process of doing this, first, thanks Santosh, because this is something that nobody has brought it up this far. So thank you so much. I think this is some hidden and underlying subject. So I'll just tell you how I find it useful. The first incident actually which really initiated the whole process was the mother was enucleated, and she did not know the exact cause. We assumed it was retinoblastoma because of the history that she gave. Then she brought her first child with bilateral retinoblastoma, and then we had to enucleate one eye because it was advanced and the other eye was undergoing chemotherapy. As this was happening, the mother became pregnant again, and she was asking, will the next child also get this problem? It's not just about the economic support that we are giving the family or the children with the treatment and the rest of it. There's a whole lot of process which is involved. So the parent was very worried. This is what initiated us to start the center. So that was one context where you can forecast whether the next one sibling would be affected. And certainly in this case, since the genetic testing was done for mother and the first child, it was showing the same mutation. So we anticipated, and the next child was born, and we asked the child to be brought immediately, and they brought it down to us as early as a 12-year-old baby, and we found a bilateral very early stage, and that helped us treat the patient not only by salvaging the globe, but also the vision was salvaged. And this is one instance. Then you can forecast, you can avoid unnecessary anesthesias by doing a genetic testing for the other siblings, and you can also forecast whether the offsprings will be affected by doing a genetic study. And then you can also do a prenatal testing. You can forecast whether the fetus is going to have the retinoblastoma or not. And in cases of twins, if one is affected, whether the other one would be affected. If it's a unilateral case, is it going to be a bilateral one? That could also be predicted. And if you can also predict whether another cancer is going to occur in the person who's being treated. All of these, I think I have examples of all of these. And surprisingly, we found out additional. See, there are so many mutations which have been published in the literature. We found some novel mutations which were very specific to our group of people. So I think it's a very, very important thing. And as I'm sure everybody is aware now, it's become part of your classification also. So it's absolutely useful, and it's reassuring for the parents also. They certainly would like to know whether the next child is going to be affected, whether this child's offspring is going to be affected, whether the child is going to have another cancer or not. All of these questions are answered through this. And the cost also is not that much. I mean, I would say from $1,800 to we've brought it down to about $250 is the package for the proband, siblings, and the parents. And of course, it would vary a bit based on the number of children. And today's scenario is usually 2 or 3 children. So not more than that in a particular family. So certainly it has really helped us in terms of forecasting and also reducing the disease burden in terms of treatment.
That's great information, Usha. So you kind of not just test children, but also complete the loop by going after the family and then do prenatal testing as well.
Yeah, that's what we do. And fortunately for us, what happens is we have these vision centers and camp organizers who actually are circulating. So like if missing case is abandoned, okay, if they want to go to another center, fine, that's perfectly all right with us. But then we have the information that they are taking treatment. If not, then we'll have to kind of pull them into it. Of course, there are very resilient ones who don't turn up despite all our reminders, personal visits. But then this part is completed and we offer them free of cost for those who cannot afford. And we have done it for patients who can afford at a cost, but those who cannot, we offer it, free of cost. Yeah.
Arka, I just want to ask you, you have a lot of experience with this genetic testing and the entire spectrum of activities that it involves, isn't it? So can you give us an overview as to what you do at Narayana Netralaya and how has it translated to patient care? That's one. Second, you also need to have a very strong pre-test and post-test counseling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the kind of decisions that we need to take sometimes to terminate pregnancy or do amniocentesis, which can be very expensive for the parents, we need to have some amount of sensitivity and specificity of the test. So how do you kind of look at it as a scientist?
Right. So I mean, it's wonderful what Dr. Kim just talked about. She's covered almost everything. So in our experience, so we don't do it comprehensively for every retinoblastoma child that walks in. But hopefully we will get to that stage in a few years' time. Right now, the testing that happens if the family chooses to get tested, and for those who do not choose to get tested but are willing to give the blood samples, we do have our own research grants through which we do the testing and we share the results with the family. But a key thing, and that's very important question that you have asked, is the pre-test and post-test genetic counseling. So because we have a dedicated genetic counseling unit, so almost every patient goes through the genetic counseling pre-test. So where the family is educated about the benefits of genetic counseling and of genetic testing, and what it might mean for the rest of the family. And it's absolutely critical that you go after the rest of the family and clarify who all are at risk and who all can maybe pass along the disease to the next generation. So it's absolutely critical to know that. For those who undergo the testing, of course, the test itself has certain limitations. So you have the NGS followed by the MLPS. You can do it in a combination of both to have maximum coverage. And the chances of picking up mutations in retinoblastoma are obviously close to 90-95% if you have bilateral retinoblastoma. And if you have unilateral, then that dramatically drops to somewhere around 20-30%. So what has been shown, and this is a publication of ours that the clinicians are all involved in, the correlation of these mutations with clinical practice, with say presentation of secondary primary tumors as well, that is very strong with certain kinds of mutations. Say, for example, arginine threonine termination mutations are typically going to have secondary tumors, and also you can automatically tell a patient that you need to be on regular follow-up no matter which part of the country you are in, because you have a risk of developing those in the future as well. So that's very critical for the long-term welfare. And that comes from the genetic testing, because just by looking at the lesion, you won't be able to tell that. Even if you have enucleated the eye, you won't be able to predict that. So that only genetics can give you. The other thing that that Kim also said, and I'm sure Gagan at our center, and I know Ashwin, who was previously working with us, or Himika, who was previously working with us, they all have stories of how they did genetic testing, and then for the next child, they were able to do the prenatal testing and counsel the patient as to whether to carry forward, or even if you go forward, right after birth, you keep monitoring them, and very early on, you were able to do, say, a cryotherapy or something like that, and get the tumor resolved. So the power of genetics is very real. The power of genetics in clinical practice is a very, very important tool that can help people with it. And overall, I think the importance in all of this, I would say the empathic aspect, the glue that holds it together, is to have a good genetic counseling unit. The pre-test counseling, the post-test counseling, managing their fears and their apprehensions through educating them, through making them aware of what to expect and how you can handle it. I think that is very important in managing these patients and keeping them happy.
Great thoughts. So how do you manage genetic counseling for somebody who is not in Bangalore, for example, somebody who sends a sample? Do you do remote counseling as well?
Yeah, we can do remote counseling as well. Now with COVID, I think that has gotten enforced on everybody. I don't think we were quite open to all of those previously, but now definitely we are open to that.
Mahesh, what are your thoughts on this? You're a typical clinician, just like me. So we don't understand much of genetics, but we want to do. So what are your thoughts?
So currently, basic genetic counseling is done by me, pre-test counseling, but the post-test, I just push it on to the team which is doing the test. So we don't have an in-house genetic testing, so we do send it outside. So it's the MedGenome, which is housed in Narayan, which is not part of Narayan. That's where we send it. And Dr. Kumar Manikwel, who was the geneticist in Shankar Netale earlier, is the person who counsels if the patient goes to the genetic testing procedure as such. So all of us have the same limitation of cost being the issue. So we would like to have every patient undergoing a genetic test, but cost is the issue. So Dr. Kim mentioned about like $250. I think probably that's how much it costs here in Bangalore, as well, it's around 25,000 rupees. So I'll be interested to know how many patients really are able to afford the $250 what Dr. Usha was mentioning. So it's a very small fragment of the number of patients who undergo the genetic testing at the present moment. So if the cost can be rationalized, or if there is a center which would do it for all of us at a particular cost, or if kids can help, that will really help, I would think. But all of us definitely would like to have genetic testing done, at least in bilateral cases or suspicious unilateral patients.
So, yeah, sorry. Since the question was asked, can I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
So, as Sir was mentioning, it's very difficult because the population that we have, they cannot afford. So, we have allocated a certain amount of funds, not only for our own patients, but for the rest of the patients from elsewhere too. If they cannot afford, we do offer it free of cost. But if we need to do a very large number free of cost, I think a bit of a subsidization would help. I mean, we don't mind doing it at the moment. I mean, whatever is required immediately, if somebody has a patient who's really requiring it, we'll certainly do it free of cost because we have some funds allocated for that. But that apart, if we need it across the country, if there is a need, certainly we'll be able to help with a bit of subsidization. And if kids can pitch in, certainly we'll be happy to.
If cost is not the barrier, and if you really want to rationalize, not do it in everybody, what are your specific indications? All three of you can answer one by one. What are your specific indications? What kind of kits you definitely want to do? What kind of kits you would probably do, and not mandatory?
You ask me personally, I've had very bad experiences that I assume that unilateral is generally not to be considered. And then I thought, okay, this is one focal lesion. It would not become multifocal. I failed in some of the cases. And then I would assume that, well, there's nothing predisposing for the patient to get a secondary tumor, well, then again, so for me, because I have the service, I think I'm stretching it a bit too far for the rest of us. So I think it wouldn't be fair for me to answer this question. In my view, I think all of them deserve one, but considering the cost factor, I'm not very sure. We should take it up. I would strongly emphasize, but I would leave it to Mahesh sir and of course, sir from
Alka.
Alka to take it forward, because I would strongly promote genetic testing in everybody. I'm not marketing it since I'm not selling it. I'm really do it free, but I want to provide this facility for everybody. But certainly Mahesh sir would or Alka sir would be able to answer this question.
The right or wrong answer, it's just a question of rationalizing the cost. So what I would do is, if there is a family history and if it is the first child with retinoblastoma, the parents are usually concerned about the second child having retinoblastoma. So in those patients, I would push them to having a genetic testing. So if we're able to identify the defect, then we are always able to say if the second child, because that gives us a big relief, gives them a big relief. Second is if there is no family history and we find a bilateral retinoblastoma, and we have screened the parents and there is no retinocytoma as well, then in that situation, again, there is a question comes up whether the subsequent children are likely to have retinoblastoma. That would be another indication where I would ask for a genetic testing. Third is, like, of course, the parents are always concerned in a unilateral retinoblastoma whether the child is likely to have a thing. So in those. And fourth is unilateral retinoblastoma less than 1 year of age. So in those, then there is a strong indication that could be genetic. So in that situation, again, I would ask for a genetic testing. These are my indications where I push them to have a genetic testing.
What about you, Alka? Do you have
I totally agree with what Dr. Shanmugan said. So those would be the ones that we would go with, because for sure, all bilateral ones, like we know, almost 95% of them you'll pick up RB mutations. With the unilaterals, of course, family history, if there's no retinomas or anything picked up in the family, in the parents, then but one thing we have to also think about, which is being seen recently, and we have seen in our cohorts also, is sometimes they have these MECAN amplifications. And even if your RB is fine, the protein is not expressed. It's an epigenetic regulation that shuts down the protein. So they might flare up at a little later in age, not as early as your RB mutation bilaterals. So follow-up would be important, and then decide at a later point whether you want to go with the testing.
What is
I have a question to both of them.
Oh, sorry, Mahesh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question for both of them. So Dr. Arka mentioned about 90 to 95%. Dr. Usha, are the tests the same, or what would be the like percentage that we are able to say for definitely it's identify the defect?
Sir, if it's early, definitely we are able to do vision salvage. And
no, not vision salvage, madam. The identification of the genetic defect.
Oh, yes, yes.
Dr. Arka mentioned with the technology, what he has 90 to 95%. As Santosh mentioned, I don't understand the technology behind the genetic testing.
Sorry.
So the tests what we have currently in the country, I'm talking about.
Yes, sir, we are on par about 90 to 95%. Yes, we are doing it at that rate. And one more thing, sir, with I just have to add this. See, just the laterality alone, I have the experience that I have. I'm not sure we should just restrict or confine ourselves, because we've had several instances where unilateral has turned out to be the other way around.
I understand.
And there are instances where parents have been silent. They've just been carriers, and we have found out that the children have been affected, which is again a strong need for doing a genetic testing. I do agree with you that cost is a constraint, but I would also remind the group that this is something that has to be featured in the process as we evolve. Of course, I think when things fall in place with all the resources in place, we'll be able to certainly sort this out, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'd like to add one other thing also, I mean, as part of the rationalization is, so there are a lot of mutations within the gene that correlate fairly strongly with severity and aggressiveness. So a lot of that is known actually, like retinoblastoma doesn't have hotspots per se, but you know, the arginine 320 and 251 and 579. So these termination ones are quite well known around the world for being the more aggressive invasive kinds. So that correlation does exist, and it's not just in cohorts in India, but worldwide. So you would like to know whether your patient has that, and you know, take your clinical decisions about what you want to do, intraarterial chemo or whatever else based on that. So that is an added benefit, apart from rationalizing the cost of this.
What about NIPD? What is the status of NIPD for retinoblastoma?
Very good question. I know that a lot of people want to have it included in the NIPT panels, but I'm not sure that the current commercially available ones have it as part of the NIPT panels. I would have to go back and look at it, because the NIPT panels have been rapidly evolving in these last 2-3 years. Once it has become fairly more in demand, particularly because a lot of people are looking at it from syndromes point of view, from neuromuscular disease point of view, because you want to know for, and there's been more awareness in the public also. Previously, there was less agreement from the patient families to do these kinds of tests, but now you have a little more awareness, particularly in the urban centers. So therefore, NIPT panels are now getting redesigned by every genomics company. But I need to check with MedGenome whether RB is part of the NIPT panel. As far as I know, it's not yet, because RB, there is a little bit of complication with the gene itself. You need to have a combination of the NGS and the MLPA to pick up everything. So that I'm not sure how amenable that is to a multi-gene NIPT panel.
That would really complete the loop, and without adding cost escalation in terms of chorionic villus sampling.
Yeah.
Poonam has been waiting to ask a question. Poonam, go ahead. You're muted.
Ma'am, you are on mute. Yes.
So I wasn't actually waiting to ask a question. I was actually wanting to respond to Dr. Usha and to some of the others to say that, you know, when Dr. Amita and I started CanKids way back, that's how retinoblastoma started, because we were in Berlin in a conference and she said, you know, we should pick some cancers and actually show what difference we can make. And that's how the retinoblastoma project was born. She said retinoblastoma, she said Hodgkin's. I said, I understand Hodgkin's, it's easy, but what about retinoblastoma? Very complicated sort of cancer. Even till today, so many years later, I don't understand the whole treatment and all the things that you all talk about, right? But then a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a few, Dr. Harish put this panel discussion on genetics, and Dr. Amita came back, and Dr. Amita is my board member, right? And she said, well, if you want to do a panel discussion, are you going to announce a service or not? Because it doesn't make sense if we don't announce a service. It doesn't make sense if we're not going to provide support. Let's just discuss that it's good to do, but no. And she's very good at getting this NGO to help and provide services. So I'm going to ask her to speak about what we'd like to be able to do. And Dr. Usha, since you mentioned this today, we'd like to work with you as well. I do want to say that we want to offer the service. We still need your help, all of you, to work out the modalities of what the service will be, what should be our tie-up be, so that we can offer the service in a way that affording patients pay for it, but non-affording patients we can support. And the one other point is, because I have my donor on the group as well today, often we have to also show impact. So the one thing that I would like to suggest is that even though we will offer this as a service, and Amita will talk about that in a minute, can we also sort of study it to say what differences it makes? So we could start with a restricted number for this year. And then don't forget, CanKids is also patient advocates. So the idea is that if we want to extend it to everybody, then that's when we go back to the government. That's when we tell the government how important it is to include this in maybe an Ayushman Bharat package or whatever, because it's heritable and it's preventable if you do something with it, is what I understand. So Amita, over to you.
Thank you, Poonam, and thank you also for taking, you know, our suggestion to do something about, because we all discuss it. All my medical colleagues here will agree that we would like to do it for every single child with retinoblastoma. Now, they've also highlighted the cost issues, and maybe to some extent access issues have been a major limiting factor. May not be access to the test because of commercially available tests, but in terms of genetic counseling and everything else that goes with it. We've been in discussion with Dr. Honavar and Poonam and the support group and working out the feasibility from our end. So at the moment, what we've strongly been able to push for is that if we can prevent a child with retinoblastoma, we will definitely support the family. So if you have a family which fulfills the criteria where it likely may be heritable, and like Dr. Usha has highlighted, we can't be 100% sure, but Dr. Honavar has helped us to list, conditions where we would strongly suspect hereditary predisposition. And if the family is planning another child, we will definitely like to take on that family from, completely. So in terms of testing the proband and then testing the mother, whether it requires CVS, because giving the test to the proband is for us the easier part, because we have commercial companies with a national footprint. We have already talked to them. The company will provide pre and post genetic counseling. And then finally, when it comes to testing the mother, if the family is keen on preventing a birth with retinoblastoma, whether it is CVS or amniocentesis, I think now after this meeting, if it's okay with everybody, we will actually map that if it was a patient from this center, where could they go for CVS? Because that is where the bottleneck for us is, because CVS and amnios are specialized procedures not available to all the centers, but we will quickly map where the facilities are, and if a family is motivated, we will help the family to travel to that center, try to find a cost, to the money for supporting that, the test, CVS or amniocentesis, whatever it may be, and it will take some homework, but we are in principle that just the own hereditary retinoblastoma is the only preventable childhood cancer, and we have to work towards that. If a family is not keen towards termination, then it may still help them, like we've already mentioned, that the baby can be screened, because either for religious, cultural or personal reasons, they may not want to consider termination as an option. We would still would be happy to help that family for testing, because then at least the newborn baby can be screened, almost as soon after birth as is feasible, and kept on very close follow-up. So for this subset of patients where families are not yet complete, families are contemplating, or they may, like we already had, we were just talking about it, but we've already had a case referred to us yesterday, whose mother is currently pregnant. So we will find a way to get this a turnaround time, because it is still about 3 weeks in our country. So we will send you a circular with who we will support, how or what are the logistics for that support. But we would actively like us to now, when we treat a child with RV, think this question actively, that are you planning future children, so that you can then refer to us. We can have the proband tested well in time, and if the mother needs to be tested, that too. Now, in terms of NIPT is something that interests us enormously, but as of today, retinoblastoma is actually one of the more challenging genetic conditions to test. So no lab anywhere offers it commercially. We are also in discussion with the lab that will support us with this service to actually do it with us on a project mode, because Dr. Honavar just shared a publication with me yesterday, a recent publication from the British group of only 15 children and 12 and there was 100% concordance. So we are trying to convince the company to work with us and do it as a project, because if NIPT is feasible, then in future that may actually overcome a lot of limitations for us and also help us in limiting the cost. But for the moment, it is not available. If we can convince them, we would like to do a small project, and we would involve you for that as well. So that's all I had to announce, that we will be very shortly send you the circular of the logistics of that support. But at least we are committed to help you preventing either a new birth with retinoblastoma, or if a family is not amenable to that, at least that the baby can be screened very early so the proband can be tested. And we'll be happy to take any questions for that. we will send you the details of the logistics shortly after this meeting.
Thank you. That's great news, Amita. That's wonderful. But requesting Poonam, at least on a project mode, if you can, have a very, of course, we have to work out the numbers, etc. If you really want to know the impact, I think you should test a particular specific number of all patients with retinoblastoma, unilateral, bilateral, all ages. And over the next 3 years, we'll know how much impact we have made just with that, so that we have that information. And then you can go on to case by case support mode. We have to calculate the sample that is required to make the power of the study, such a study.
So that's the point, Dr. Honavar. The question I asked you the other day, how many children are you talking about? Because for us, it always translates into going back to our CSR partner and saying, this is the number of children, this is the amount of money we need, this is what we will show it will generate. And I don't know if Naveen is still here in the meeting. Naveen, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So Naveen would tell you, because he's our CSR partner, that's how we would normally, our CSR partner would always come back to say, well, okay, how many are you looking at? You couldn't be looking at 2,000 children, right? Or 1,500 children. So that's where we need your help to build the project in such a way that, we have the who will we help, how will we support, what is the number, what will show impact. And once we know the number and we're showing impact, then we're able to scale it up either with more CSR funding or maybe even going back to the government. Naveen, do you want to come in?
I think you have informed everybody in the proper right manner. From the corporate point of view, we would need these information even to build a case to discuss internally the impact and the cost. So these two things are very, very necessary at the starting point, even to start talking about it. So yes, this type of information is really, really important for all the corporates.
Dr. Honavar and Poonam, could I suggest Dr. Usha Kim is actually testing all the children at her center. I mean, over a period of time, that is the most important database to us, for future. And if there are other centers that are testing or testing, we cannot answer this question. But like in her center, every child is being tested for genetics. If there are other centers, we can look at towards working with them, and if there is some component that we could help fulfill and build that database robustly, and that could help us answer some of the questions and make a build a case for us for advocacy for government funding for this test. Or another important thing that Dr. Honavar brought up is pre-implantation diagnosis. Now, pre-implantation testing and pre-implant is now available in India. Unfortunately, we cannot support that. But again, if there are families, we can at least develop a resource that they can know where to go to get this done. So that again is something that we will work towards. So if a center, a family would like to go ahead with a pregnancy, does not want to consider termination, but would like to consider that, of course, there are financial elements involved. So it will be restricted to families that can afford that. But it is happening for other genetic conditions. I work with hemoglobinopathies and we are offering it for that. So we can at least develop that resource and guide them and steer them in the right direction. But I think we can work with like Dr. Usha Kim Center, and if we can help some of the patients who are not affording, or whichever way, so that then that we can build it into like a proper study with you. Dr. Kim, is that feasible?
Perfectly all right with me. I mean, I'll be happy to share whatever information I have and support in any way possible. I think I'll be.
So, Usha, can you tell me again, how many cases do you support a year? How many cases do you do a year?
We are doing about 100 per year, but we can go a little more, stretch a little more. I mean, the numbers can go up. We can do more testing, but what we can, the capacity with the funds that we have, we're doing it up to 100. And of which I think, I would say only 10% will be, hardly 10% will be paying.
So, Usha, you have numbers over a period of time, isn't it?
Yes,
so,
I do.
But all of them have undergone a particular mandated, say 3 or 4 years of follow-up till they're out of kind of retinoblastoma. So that information, I think, will be very valuable.
Yeah, sure. Certainly, I'll be very happy to share that information.
Dr. Honavar, I'm laughing because when you asked me what number, I said for the first year, 100. So then this is what she just said, 100. So that's the amount of money I can figure out from my existing budget. Let's get started with that. And then the better we do the project, the more we can ask Naveen and Kanika to give us more funding.
So one thing I can offer here is you can support the other centers for the first 100. We will take care of our centers' needs ourselves. So that's something we can do it. Yeah. So that's
a project of 200 kids right away. How nice.
Yeah.
Dr. Arka, you also want to put in some number?
Yeah, I can't get it right off the top of my, but I think somewhere around 40, 50, or I think is what comes along to Narayan. I mean, of that, somewhere around 10% is probably what undergoes voluntary testing. We do, like I said, because we have research grants where we study retinoblastoma. So under that, we do maybe another 20% or so, which gets tested. So the test is given, the results are given free for that.
So we're looking at about 240 cases, right?
Yeah, yeah.
140. There you have it, doctors. Now you can please do a project.
Two different components. Poonam, these are two different, sort of areas. So, but both, at least we are moving in the direction of genetic testing, and that's a positive sign.
Does anyone else has any question before we end?
Yeah, I have a question. What would be the logistics involved? Because like for us, it's okay to send a specific doctor across in Bangalore, but if there are other centers involved in sending to Dr. Usha or to Arka, what would be the logistics involved? I'm sure they would want to know that.
So we can send the procedure and everything to everybody. So whoever has it, the access or whatever. I'm sure the group is going to generate some ideas and send it across. We'll send the protocol, sir. Whatever we have, we'll share it with everybody. I think we can do it, sir.
So Dr. Usha, let me also clarify. We were also thinking in terms of a tie-up, which allows us to do the service pan-India. And so we'll discuss the modalities so that we use the private service, we use your service, and we pull together a project that will work consistently right through, right? And I've just committed on the chat that we should try to start this service, Dr. Namita, by the 1st of July. So we'll do a separate session with you and work out what is feasible. Also, which are the conditions in which we're saying yes, no. Would someone who can afford it, how would they pay for it, as opposed to kids will we support only if it's non-afford, right? So, and since we work with a lot of the centers already, and we've done a minimum residual disease project similarly before, so I think we'd be able to work out the modalities of how to do it. But just to clarify that I wasn't saying I would do 100 tests with you, right? Let's work on something together. Yeah.
Just to answer his question, for the centers where we offer, the service, where like we said, for prevention or very early diagnosis of a newborn child, sample will be collected from the individual centers. So there will be no, the inconvenience to the family, because actually we can share with you, MedGenome is the company most centers are working with. I think they have a fairly robust platform. We feel most comfortable dealing with them, and they have a national footprint. So they will collect the samples from your doorstep, from your center, and they will provide the service. And again, the CVS samples will be, or amnio, if it is done, they will be sent to them. Now the center, and it will be collected from wherever CVS or amnio is done. So we will, on a case basis, organize it for you, and that the logistics will be taken care of. That will not be a hassle. And those we can send to Dr. Usha Kims, again, that we will set up a procedure for that, as to how that it's fairly smooth, and it's streamlined and seamless. So everything just happens. And once you've recognized that this is a family that could really benefit from this, you refer it to us. We will coordinate the same for you, and it will be seamless. That's how the MRD project has worked. It's something that we offer hematological malignancies, and we've been collecting samples from 37 centers and sending to 2 regional labs in the country that have excellent quality control issues, so that the report that comes out, we can stand by that report.
Wonderful. Anyone else has any questions? Any of the panelists, not the panelists, of course, participants. Quickly, I think, a little overboard on time, but we can accommodate a couple of questions. Anyone on silent? All right. So shall we close if there are no more questions?
Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank you
Arka.
so much.
Thank you, Arka. Thank you, Mahesh.
Wonderful.
Thank
Usha.
you.
Everyone knows Mahesh and Usha, but Arka is not an ophthalmologist, but he heads the Grow Lab at Narayan Nethralaya. He's the best brain in genetics and molecular biology.
Thank you. Too kind.
Really
Thank you.
good to know you today. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining us.
Thank you, Poonam, and thank you, Mahesh sir, for joining.
Thank you, Dr. Usha. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you, CanKids. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you everyone for this session. And it is really nice if people are starting a service from 1st of July. Now the next session is about COVID and the retinoblastoma cases. Thing is that for the last 1.5 years, we people are handling this COVID and there are dropout of the number of children's new registration as well as the follow-up children's. So I would like to call upon Poonam Madam, the chairperson CanKids, to start the discussion on COVID and retinoblastoma cases.
So thank you, Dr. Haresh. And I think we're winding down to the last of the sessions, but for me personally, a very, very important session, I guess, for all of us. Because while we're doing all of this, we have all been struggling with COVID the last year, and this year, I think worse than the last year. We've tried really hard across the country to work as a pediatric oncology community to try to keep the children on therapy, and also to try to figure out how to get them to initiate therapy. But we know last year that our registrations of new cases of children with cancer dropped by almost 30%. And yet last year we were able to keep a lot of children on therapy. And this year it has been even tougher. This second phase, the second wave as it is called, has been tougher. More of our children have had COVID, although a lot of them, most of them have recovered. But very, very many doctors, many centers have turned COVID. In many centers, the doctors have all had COVID, and therefore often there are not enough doctors and nurses to even look after the children. So it's been grim. This second wave has been grim. And we're headed now into a third wave where the talk is that more children are likely to get COVID. So what we as an NGO want to do is understand from a support point of view, what is it that we need to do to be ready, to be prepared, or even to overcome what we have gone through in the last year or two in terms of, has the registration for retinoblastoma dropped? Has it affected the treatment of our children who have retinoblastoma over last year and this year? What do we need to do to keep children on therapy? What do we, either as clinicians or support services, need to do to bring children on treatment who have neither been diagnosed, forget about starting treatment? And also, what do we need to do to prepare for the third wave, if at all, for children with retinoblastoma? So I know we don't have a lot of time, but I am very, very keen to understand what we need to do. I'm going to ask Dr. Honavar to start off with some work that he has done on RB and COVID. Dr. Honavar?
Rolika, can you? My fellow Dr. Rolika Bansal has analyzed the data she'll present. Rolika, please.
Yes. My screen is visible?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Rolika, please go ahead.
Yes. So I'll be talking about the treatment delay due to COVID-19 pandemic and the outcomes of retinoblastoma patients. So it is rightly said that you may delay, but time will not, and lost time is never found again. Yeah, so the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a loss to follow-up in our very vulnerable group of retinoblastoma patients due to the national and international travel restrictions, the worldwide lockdown, and it has led to a decrease in the access and availability of the healthcare services for our patients. So we at Center for Sight analyzed our data and we did a retrospective study in which 29% of the registered cases, we noted that they were the treatment defaulters from March 2020 to November 2020. Out of these cases, 326 eyes were the ones which were undergoing primary treatment under our care. Most of them belonged to Group D. The means of communications that we used to contact the patients included telephonic conversations, emails, postal letters. We tried our level best along with the social workers to contact them. And we found out that the reasons for treatment delay was mostly and definitely in all cases travel restrictions with cofactors like financial constraints, COVID contacts, or even family issues. We tried our level best to make arrangements to get them assessed by the ophthalmologists locally, and 18.2% we could get them treated there to make sure that we do not have them coming back with major recurrences. So we noted that 75% of the patients could be assessed after loss to follow-up till January 2021. In fact, our estimates are that since the patients kept following up, now we are only left with say 5% who could not come back. Most of them are the regressed ones. And total of 525 eyes were the ones that we assessed here. The mean delay that we saw was 12.1 weeks, and most of the patients were because of the interstate travel restrictions. We saw that 27.6% patients were the ones on active treatment, and 72 were regressed on the last follow-up. The active treatment that the patients were on included chemotherapy in 12% patients, and of course TTT, POT, IVT, and cryotherapy, and so on. 2 patients were advised enucleation and 1 plaque brachytherapy before the loss to follow-up. When the patients came back to us, we saw a whole myriad of presentations here. We had cases with when the tumor filled up the whole of vitreous cavity, the necrotic component. Tumor recurrences from very stable lesions was seen in 51.2% cases. Seeds recurred in 14.3% cases, and AC seeds also recurred in 0.9% patients. Neuroimaging was required in 19 patients, and bone marrow and CSF analysis was required in 4 cases. We saw that 1 of our patients had intracranial extension, and 3 cases had optic nerve extension, which was not there on their last visit. So we reinitiated treatment, and IVC was initiated in 24% cases. We also reinitiated intravitreal chemotherapy in 8.4. Cryotherapy was given in 2.6% patients, and secondary IIC and plaque brachytherapy was required in 6 cases each. However, we saw that there was an eye salvage in 96.8% because we put in all our level best efforts with an individualized approach in all the patients. Unfortunately, 17 eyes had to be enucleated, and we had adjuvant chemotherapy required in 2 cases where histopathological risk factors were positive. Fortunately, we did not have any of the cases with metastasis, and life salvage was achieved in 99.8% cases. The 1 case that we could not save and succumbed was the one with intracranial extension who died after the first palliative chemotherapy session. So to conclude, retinoblastoma has been tried as a medical emergency as per the preferred practice pattern and guidelines, and we should not forget that. COVID-19 has affected the treatment follow-up adversely. It is very important to put in maximum possible initiatives, be it telephone conversations, WhatsApp pings, and emails, and even letters if they have to be written. Counseling of parents is very much required because of the COVID fear. The parents are not willing to come back, and we have to counsel them about the importance of the treatment requirement. And despite of all our efforts of tumor recurrence, in 51.2% patients, eye salvage was achieved in 96.8% and life salvage in 99.8% with all our efforts. So defer no time because delays have dangerous ends. And in this COVID-19 war that we have going on, the 2 most powerful warriors are patience and time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Radhika. I have a question for you and for Dr. Honavar both. So what would you say would be the most important thing that any center would need to do, firstly, to keep children on therapy? What do you think out of all that your experience was during COVID? What was the most important thing?
I think
So now-
communication is the key, right? Communication with all available modalities. Whatever, however you can reach them, through a neighbor, through their own mobile, the second number, WhatsApp, just hound them. Sometimes they don't pick up our calls, when they can recognize Rolika's number or Mritika's number. So what we do is we call from a different number. Just start, getting to them. That's all. Once they start a conversation, I think it's easy to convince, but to get to them is difficult sometimes.
So communication and counseling, right?
Yeah.
Lot of extra counseling support, correct?
And support, and I think you have to facilitate the travel. And we are not, you're not authorized to issue letters on behalf of the government or permit passes, but just a letter on the letterhead mentioning that this child has cancer and any delay can be life-threatening is sometimes enough for them to show to the police or whoever minds the borders of each state, and they would allow them through. So that's important.
Yeah, you mentioned that families actually booked a car together and came, right?
In Gujarat, yes, Maharashtra, Gujarat, they kind of 4-5 families get together and come in a vehicle, which they travel by road. And we issued them letters, which are issued through WhatsApp with a stamp and all. Looks very authentic. They simply have to show it at the border and they get in.
Yeah, but what about new cases? You were able to keep your children on therapy who you followed up, but did you see a drop in registrations?
No, I think we don't have month by month data. I think we are doing an elaborate analysis on that, but there was a drop when there was lockdown, complete lockdown, but it kind of bounced back. So by 31st March, everything came back to last year's data, everything. And now, of course, this has started again, second wave. So let's see. There was actually a good bounce back, and we were very busy in December, January, February, March, taking care of patients.
Thank you. Dr. Seema Das, would you like to share your experience up here in the north, both in terms of therapy, initiation? Yeah.
So I don't have a formal PPT because our data is just getting analyzed. So what we tried to see is pre-COVID, past 1 year, and the COVID era. So 2020 versus 2019, what has been the difference in the presentation, the clinical presentation in terms of staging? At what stage did they come to us, and what has been the delay and the impact on the treatment? So essentially, the gross figure what I have is if I take the parameter of just say eye salvage, the enucleation, the gut feeling initially I had is that probably I have done much more enucleation during the COVID time than I had done in the previous year. But while we looked at the data, the number wise, it was not too much of difference. So about 18 enucleation in 2019 versus 21 in 2020 and 2021. But the primary enucleation is actually what is something increased. So in 2020 and 2021, the lockdown COVID period, almost 60 to 65% in fact of the enucleation that what you have done are primary enucleation, vis-a-vis about 27% or so which were primary enucleation in the pre-COVID era. So it's basically could be an indirect measure that the marker that the patients who are coming to us are coming at a stage where kind of eye salvage might not be very feasible. Or probably also our threshold to do an enucleation might be a little lower in this time because we don't want to take a chance, and sometimes the patients are not able to come for follow-up. So even if sometimes that you could maybe try salvage, but considering other thing, travel and all, your threshold to do an enucleation becomes a little lower. But this definitely was more than double the primary enucleation data compared to the pre-COVID time. Other than that, of course, travel, as Sir has said, travel was the most important thing. So there were families who were willing to come, provided we are able to give a travel support. So CanKids has helped a lot in that aspect. And also, since we are sort of a community-based hospital where we have our network of satellite centers across various districts of UP, Haryana, and Rajasthan, so that really helped. So people who are in our vision centers or vision technician, attendant actually went back to the houses of the patients who were not able to get a vehicle, hire a vehicle or a hospital car and brought them to the hospital. So that's how things have been. And with that, almost initially during the time of lockdown, almost 30% had some form of delay in the follow-up, but finally at the end, just about 6% of the patients were actually lost to follow-up. We are able to maintain follow-up for the remaining 94% of the patients. And of course, the COVID itself was a major problem. Like in the data of last 1 year of both the new patients and some of ongoing patients, about 8 patients turned out COVID positive. So that of course delayed the treatment, the modality and other thing, but ultimately there was no effect as such of the COVID on the treatment per se. Like there were patients where chemo was given because in the very initial phase of the lockdown, we were not doing COVID tests for those children. So after we started chemo and maybe for some reason next day, say we planned for say we did an EUA and next day we planned for an ISC or something like that, where an RT-PCR was done for that, and then the child turned out to be kind of COVID positive. So however, like that per se did not make any difference in the outcome of the patient, and I think Dr. Amita will be able to tell better. Per se, COVID did not seem to have any effect on the treatment kind of outcome as such, in terms of increasing the complications on other things as such. So, so what I see, if support has to be given and we have to prepare for the third wave, travel is going to be something which is going to be very important, other than, of course, communication and counseling of the families and the their stay and testing facility also is something which we need to kind of look at, especially in a standalone eye care facility where kind of if the patient turns out to be COVID positive, then there was a problem. Where do you send the patient? Especially if it's an outpatient patient. Do you send to another hospital, where to admit, and those kind of things. So those are something, if we take care of them and prepare for them, definitely we'll be able to take care of the next wave much more better.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone from the eastern part of the country they'd like to share? Dr. Somade or Dr. Somade, are you there?
Dr. Manavdev Burman is there. He's from SSN Guwahati.
Anji. Dr. Burman, are you there?
I think he has left.
Okay.
He has left.
And what about Chandigarh? Do we have someone from Chandigarh?
Samiksha is there. Samiksha, maybe you can give your experience.
Good afternoon.
I'm there.
Am I
from
audible?
Chandigarh.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, yes.
I'm Dr. Pandey, speaking from GMCH Chandigarh.
Yes, Dr. Abdesh, yes.
Yeah.
So because we got this after this means this counseling हमें बहुत we got this certificate very late for starting this service. That's why we have just included one case till date. But after this, we will start very fast, and we are usually doing around 10 to 15 cases per year. So we are not having any problem except little bit counseling and data entry, because we are having everything. MRI is we are giving full chemotherapy. We are having surgery problem is not there. We are having plaque therapy also. So there is no problem as such. And our loss to follow-up rate is also very less. So that way we are very good. Not very much problem from our side.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Abdesh. Dr. Samiksha?
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for letting me speak. I don't know about the other centers, but then we have been seeing a lot more extraocular RB or RB coming in at very advanced stages. I mean, it was quite alarming. We were looking at the data, and we got in a year we get about 70 new patients, and we found that about 30 of them had extraocular RB. I mean, we have had issues with people following up. We have been on the phone. We have been trying to communicate with them. And thank you to CanKids, because our social worker Manisha has been very instrumental in arranging for ambulances and getting the patients here. But it has been challenging. It's luckily we don't have certain constraints, like if we do have COVID positive patients, we'd have a place to send them to And we routinely do RT-PCRs before our EUAs and all the procedures. Luckily, we don't have those constraints, but our patients are quite poor, and travel is the major issue that we're facing issues with.
Yeah. Any reason you feel about seeing more extraocular? Or Dr. Santosh, if you have a view about it, anyone on the in the audience? Is it just delays, and because of that?
Yes, I suppose, because anyway, that belt is supposed to have more of extraocular, sub-Himalayan area, which drains to Chandigarh, has most of extraoculars in India. So possibly that combined with delay.
Yeah, but I think what Samiksha is talking about is more than earlier. So
yeah,
I'm just thinking that it was delays or people not coming in for treatment. And I just feel that we are going to see more of that as well, because there are, we can see registrations have dropped, right? So once the COVID wave gets over and people start coming in, you may find that more are coming in with delay in diagnosis and therefore more widespread disease, right? Yeah, I think we're going to have to be prepared for that across the country, really.
Roshmi, what has been your experience? Any ideas?
Dr. Roshmi, you are on mute.
Naranetralaya has several branches across Bangalore, and at least Naranetralaya 1, where I primarily sit, we've been seeing 2 to 3 new patients a month throughout the pre-COVID era. But once the lockdowns and COVID has started, our input has drastically dropped. I'm not sure where the patients are going. And in one, 60% of my patients are from other districts, from outside Bangalore. So I would presume that they haven't been able to make it to the center. And those who have come in at a fairly advanced stage with neovascular glaucoma, or, almost going into thysis bulbi. They've come in at that point. So whoever has come in, the globe salvage rate has been very low there.
Yeah. So I think there are 2 things that we would need to prepare for. One is to see more children in the immediate next 6, 8, 10 months coming in at advanced stages. And what can we do and how best we can support this, because it's just has been the nature of the problem that children have not been able to come to centers for treatment and even for getting diagnosed. So I think we're going to have to cope with that and see what we can do to support families and support children who have come with advanced diseases. And the other thing that I'm just sort of wondering is there something that we can do as a group to put out the message? We now have a good network of centers across the country. So would anybody like to suggest that maybe we can put out a message and then share it at RIOs as well as with the government, that these are the centers, these are willing to take on support for children. We will support the children financially, but people need to come forward for treatment, because a lot of the time they may just feel there's no point anymore. What do you think?
I think can I speak?
Yeah, please.
Can I tell something?
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Pandey speaking from GMCH Chandigarh. Genetic testing is very important, and that means so many centers, I think they are not able to do it. So that may be one factor which can be taken for asking to the government and otherwise.
Yeah. Dr. Usha, you were saying something. Yes.
Yeah. So I was, what we did actually during that time was we were not insisting that they come to us. I mean, our patients need not necessarily come to us. We were giving instructions to centers which were close by, where we knew for sure that they could handle the patients, and that at least that chemotherapy setting that session could be handled by that particular center. So we were giving the case history, and we were also asking them to give a particular dosage, whatever was intended after examination and consultation with us. And we were also providing, the e-pass, whatever requests and all that to the patients. So yes, there was a time delay, but it definitely helps in reaching out to them. At least if you don't insist that they should come back only to this particular center for the treatment. At least I've done a few references to people in other centers where they could manage the case. So we could do that kind of a networking as you had suggested. List out the probable places where we could connect and they could reach out to. At least that particular session, if it's not very complicated, can be handled in that area. This is what I did. I mean, I'm sure everybody has done something like that.
I think that's wonderful. And I think, the shared care at this time is really important. So yes, I would like to suggest that maybe we can put together a letter from all of us saying, look, these are all the centers across the country that are treating retinoblastoma and are happy to help each other or do shared care during this phase. So in case a family is not able to, for whatever reason, travel, you can go to this alternate center, which is part of the network, and the two doctors, and that's something that we would help to facilitate. The main treating center and the shared care center together would manage the care of that family till they're able to travel back again.
One more point. I mean, apart from these, the networking hospitals, there are other hospitals also who came forward. In my case, it was the RCC and one government hospital which came forward to support, the children, where we would give the dosage specifications and everything, and they were willing to do it. And we had got the assistance of an ophthalmologist to come and assess the child and then go further with it. So that also is a possibility. Maybe you can facilitate that part.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Anybody else? Any other last comments before we close down this session? I'm still worried about third wave and it affecting more children. And is there something that we need to do for children with retinoblastoma? So if nobody has any ideas currently, but if there's anyone who does any reading, any research, comes up with anything that, the government has still not put out all the guidelines on looking after children during the third wave, but we'd like to be anticipating rather than be taken unawares later. So if anyone has any ideas on this that, we could do, then we'd really like to do that. We'd like to take care of that as well.
We already have a publication in Indian Journal of Ophthalmology, Oncology Care During COVID Times, that is still relevant for the second and the third wave as well. So I can send you a copy of that and we can customize it and then circulate.
That would be wonderful. That would be really nice. That would be great. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this session.